I work as a doula. I've helped hundreds of mothers. Then one morning, I got a Yelp notification. This woman is a danger to newborns. She nearly dropped my baby and pressured me into her political beliefs. I cried for hours. I called every client, none wrote it. My neighbor later slipped up during a walk. You should keep your job out of our conversations. Some of us are sick of hearing about your miracles. I'm a birth doula. I live in Tempe, Arizona. I've done this job for over a decade. It's not just a career, it's my purpose. I've helped more than 200 women go through labor. I've held hands, wiped sweat, and whispered words that kept mothers going when they thought they couldn't. Some people call that cheesy. I don't care. It's real. When you're in a room with a woman fighting through hours of contractions, you see what real strength is. You see what life looks like before it takes its first breath. This job matters. That's why when that review showed up, it crushed me. It was a Thursday morning. I remember it clearly because I'd just come back from an overnight birth. I was exhausted but happy. The mom delivered a healthy baby boy around 4 a.m. She cried and kept saying, "I couldn't have done it without you." That kind of thing sticks with you. I was making tea. The sun was just rising. Then my phone buzzed. Yelp. I opened it without thinking. And there it was. This woman is a danger to newborns. She nearly dropped my baby and tried to push her political beliefs on me while I was vulnerable and recovering. Unprofessional. Scary. Avoid. It hit me like a slap to the face. I read it 3 times before I sat down. Then I read it again. I couldn't breathe. I'm careful with babies. Always have been. My hands never shake. I never lift a baby without supporting the head and neck. That part wasn't just a lie, it was vicious. And the political stuff? I stay quiet during labor. Always. Some clients bring it up. Some don't. Either way, I stay neutral. My job is to make the mother feel supported, not to debate. This was a full-on character attack. I broke down crying. Not just from the words, but from the thought that someone out there hated me enough to do this. And I didn't even know who. I pulled myself together and started calling clients. Every single one I'd worked with in the last 6 months. Each conversation sounded the same. God, no, that wasn't me. Who would write something like that? That's disgusting. You helped me when no one else would. I trust you with my life. One woman offered to call Yelp herself and report the review as fake. None of them wrote it. Not a single one. That's when I knew someone was targeting me. And the more I sat with it, the more something didn't feel random. I started looking at the wording. The way they said, miracle births. That's my phrase. I use it on my website, my Instagram, sometimes even in conversation. I hadn't told any clients about it lately. But someone else had heard it. Someone close by. Someone who listened. And then it hit me, Michelle. Michelle is my neighbor. 2 doors down. She's one of those people who always feels cold, even when she smiles. She never had kids. She's married to some guy in insurance. They keep to themselves. When I first moved in, I tried to be friendly. She wasn't rude, just off. You know the type. Nice on the surface, but you can feel the judgment underneath. Over the years, I caught her staring when clients hugged me on the porch. One time she asked me how many babies I've, really, delivered. I told her doulas don't deliver babies. She laughed and said, "So you're just a cheerleader then?" It stung. But I let it go. Now, all those little things came back with new meaning. About a week after the review, I saw her walking her dog while I was out with mine. We sometimes walk the same route. That day, she started walking next to me like nothing had happened. I didn't bring it up. I just listened. I told her a story about a birth I'd attended the week before. I said it was a miracle birth, just like I always do when something beautiful happens during labor. She cut me off. "You should keep your job out of our conversations," she said. "Some of us are sick of hearing about your miracles." She kept walking. But I stopped. That word again. Miracles. She used the same language as the fake review. That was the moment I knew. It was her. Michelle wrote the review. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Because screaming wouldn't fix this. She wanted me to break down. She wanted me to fall apart. So instead, I started watching her. She let her dog off leash every morning at the park, even though there are clear signs against it. So I took pictures. Every time. She parked in the red zone on street sweeping days. I noted the dates and times. She left trash bags on her porch that sat there for days. I documented that too. And while I collected evidence, I worked on my business. I asked my recent clients to post honest reviews. Most of them were more than happy to. One wrote, "I trust her with my life. Whoever said otherwise clearly doesn't know her." Another said, "My baby is safe, healthy, and loved, and she played a huge role in that." I felt a little stronger every day. But the review stayed up. Yelp didn't care that I had proof it wasn't a client. They called it free speech. They said they couldn't verify the origin. So I did something I swore I wouldn't. I wrote a blog post. I titled it, "The Truth About That Review." I didn't name names. I didn't accuse anyone directly. But I laid out every fact. I explained how I called every client. How none of them wrote it. How the wording in the review matched things someone in my neighborhood had said. I included screenshots of the positive messages I got from clients, proof of my spotless record, and even a few texts thanking me for being the calm in the storm. I posted it to my website. Then I shared it on Facebook and Instagram. It took off. One of my clients shared it in a local parenting group. Then another. And another. By the end of the week, it had been shared more than 1,000 times. People started commenting directly on my Yelp page, defending me. Then something strange happened. The review disappeared. Gone. Just like that. No alert. No email. Just vanished. Michelle had to have removed it. But that wasn't enough. Because she still lived next door. And she was still out there, talking trash at the HOA meetings. One neighbor told me she said I was emotionally manipulating women for money. So I waited for my moment. And it finally came. It was March when the real twist happened. Our neighborhood HOA announced the annual spring block party. Every year, people set up tables, bring food, talk, and act friendlier than usual. It's fake sometimes, but it's useful. People show up, even the quiet ones. This year, there was a new addition, a community award. Apparently, a few new board members thought it'd be nice to recognize a resident who contributed to the neighborhood. Someone had donated money for a plaque and a gift card. Nothing huge, just symbolic. Guess who got nominated? Me. A mom I helped last year had recently moved into our subdivision. Her name's Sarah. She had a rough birth, long labor, emergency transfer to the hospital, but I stayed with her the whole time. Held her hand while she sobbed. Coached her husband when he almost passed out. Sarah wrote a glowing nomination letter. She said I made her feel safe, seen, and strong. She said I stayed when others didn't. That I changed her life. I didn't even know about the award until someone else told me I was in the top 3. Michelle was on the board. I found out she argued against my nomination. Said it would be inappropriate to award someone whose professional reputation had been questioned. Someone else shut her down and told her that the review had been taken down and dozens of people had written in support of me. Michelle didn't like that. She got quieter around the neighborhood after that. Not friendly quiet. The dangerous kind. The kind where you know someone's planning something behind the scenes. I kept smiling. I showed up to every event. I helped paint the community fence with some of the kids. I even donated cupcakes to the bake sale. Michelle wasn't used to being ignored. She was used to control. But now, she was losing it. That's when she made her next move. One morning, I woke up to an email from the Arizona Department of Health Services. It said there had been a complaint filed against me. Someone claimed I was performing medical procedures without a license. That I was posing as a midwife and giving medical advice that led to a near-death birth. The words made my stomach twist. This wasn't Yelp. This was the state. If the complaint went through, they could suspend my certifications. I could lose my liability insurance. My whole career could be destroyed, this time for real. I called the department immediately. I asked for details. They wouldn't tell me who filed it, but they said they'd be reviewing it over the next month. They said if it turned out to be false, it would be dropped. But until then, they'd be contacting recent clients. My hands were shaking when I hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there thinking, she did it again. Michelle wasn't finished. The Yelp review didn't ruin me, so now she was going legal. And this time, she wasn't leaving a paper trail. But here's the thing about me, I pay attention. A few months earlier, when I was walking my dog past her house, I saw her in the garage sorting papers. She was standing in front of a table with a bunch of files, receipts, even a stack of neighborhood flyers. She had sticky notes everywhere. I remember it clearly because she turned and saw me looking, and slammed the garage door shut. At the time I didn't think much of it. But now, I started wondering if Michelle kept records of everything. Maybe she had a habit of documenting everything. Even lies. So I waited. And I watched. 2 weeks later, I got a break. Her husband, Paul, came to the same gas station I was at. He was filling up, and I was parked one pump over. He waved. I waved back. He looked tired. Then out of nowhere, he said, "Hey, listen. Can I ask you something kind of awkward?" I said sure. He glanced around, then leaned in a little and said, "Did you and Michelle have some kind of falling out?" I kept my face calm. "Why do you ask?" "She's been obsessed. I don't mean that as an insult. It's just, she talks about you constantly. The other day I found a folder in the den with your name on it." My blood froze. I stayed calm. "Really?" He nodded. "Emails. Printed out social media posts. Screenshots. Even pictures of your driveway." I asked her what it was and she told me to mind my business. I smiled gently. "You're not the first person to say something like that." He looked uncomfortable. "Honestly? I think she's going too far." I told her to stop. "But she's angry. About a lot of things." "Thanks for telling me," I said. And that's when I made a plan. After that conversation with Paul, everything changed. I knew now for sure, Michelle had been collecting things on me. She had a folder. She had taken pictures of my driveway. Who does that unless they're obsessed? And now I had her husband as a reluctant ally. I didn't push him further that day, but I knew I had to get a look at that folder. I wasn't going to break into her house, obviously, but I started thinking, if she printed screenshots and posts, maybe she also printed the Yelp review. If I could prove that, I could finally connect her directly to it. Same with the false complaint to the state. I just didn't know how I'd ever get access to any of it. Then Paul gave me another chance. A week later he knocked on my door. He looked nervous, like a guy sneaking around behind enemy lines. "Hey," he said. "Can we talk?" I let him in. We sat at my kitchen table. He looked tired, like he hadn't been sleeping much. "She's out of control," he said. "It's getting worse." He told me Michelle had been printing out my Instagram posts and writing notes on them. Things like potential legal liability and use of word medical flag this. She'd even saved a photo I posted where I'm standing in a hospital hallway, smiling, with a new mom and her baby. She wrote, "Unauthorized presence?" under it. That post was over 2 years old. "She's digging through your life," Paul said. "It's creepy." I told her I wouldn't be part of it, and she said, "You're either with me or you're with her." He paused. "And honestly? If I have to pick a side, I'm picking the person who's not acting like a maniac." Then he looked me in the eye. "I can get you copies." I didn't even know what to say. I just stared at him. He said, "I'm not doing this to hurt her. I'm doing it because she's hurting you. And frankly, I don't know what else she's capable of." He came back the next morning when Michelle had gone to her mother's in Scottsdale. She was gone for the weekend. Paul showed up with a manila envelope. Inside were copies of a printed version of the Yelp review, same wording, same fake signature she'd used. A typed-up draft of a letter to the Arizona Department of Health Services. 3 pages of printed Facebook comments I'd made in support of a maternal health bill. Notes on my website circled with comments like, "Unlicensed claim?" and "Report for emotional manipulation?" A photo of me hugging a client on my porch, labeled, "Inappropriate touching?" It was disgusting. But it was also gold. This was proof. Cold, undeniable proof that Michelle had written the review, filed the complaint, and had been actively trying to destroy me for months. She didn't make a mistake. She wasn't being careless. She had waged a one-woman war on me. And now, I had the ammunition to fight back. But I didn't go straight to the authorities. Not yet. I wanted her to feel the walls closing in. So I did something I knew she couldn't resist. I posted a message on my Instagram. "To whoever's been watching, printing, and filing my life, I see you now. And I'm not afraid of you. Truth always wins." That was it. No name. No location. Just a warning. Within 2 hours, Michelle texted me. Yes, texted. She'd never texted me before. It said, "I have no idea what your little cryptic message is about, but if you're suggesting something about me, I'd be very careful. Slander works both ways." I didn't answer. She was rattled. I could feel it. Then, a week later, the Arizona Health Department closed the complaint. They said after multiple interviews and a review of my credentials there was no evidence of misconduct or malpractice. The complaint was dismissed and sealed. I got a formal letter saying I was in good standing. They even apologized for the stress. But Michelle didn't stop. She started going door to door. talking to neighbors, telling them I had attacked her online, that I was sneaking around, and spreading rumors. She was unraveling. One neighbor told me she said I had made her feel unsafe in her own home. Which is ironic, because I was the one who felt unsafe, living next door to someone trying to wreck my life from the shadows. That's when I knew I was done waiting. I was going to end this. I took everything Paul gave me, the copied papers, the screenshots, even the photo Michelle took of me and a client. I organized it all into a binder and labeled it harassment and defamation, Michelle, last name. Then I talked to a lawyer. At first, I didn't know if I had a case. But once he read the fake Yelp review, the false medical complaint, and saw the printed out pages from my personal social media, he leaned back in his chair and said, "Yeah. This is malicious." He helped me draft a cease and desist letter. But we didn't send it right away. First, we reached out to the HOA. I asked for a private meeting. I brought my binder. 3 board members sat in a small conference room at the clubhouse while I calmly walked them through what Michelle had done. I showed them proof. I gave them printed statements from clients. I showed them the official state letter clearing my name. One of the board members, a retired nurse, looked furious. "I can't believe she filed a fake medical complaint," she said. "That could have destroyed your license." Another whispered, "She's been talking about you at meetings, saying you're unstable." After that meeting, the board requested a hearing to determine if Michelle had violated the HOA's code of conduct and caused harm to a resident. I didn't attend the hearing. But Paul told me she showed up red-faced, sweaty, and yelling. She called me vindictive, said I was stalking her, and even claimed I forged the papers she had in her folder. That was the last straw for the board. 3 days later, the HOA issued a formal notice to Michelle and Paul. They were fined $2,500 for harassment, slander, and creating a hostile environment for another resident. And then came the next part. With my lawyer, I filed a civil defamation and harassment lawsuit. We served Michelle the papers in person. I wasn't there, but Paul told me she screamed at the delivery guy and slammed the door so hard it shook the porch light. We weren't suing for $1 million or anything. Just enough to send a message. I wasn't going to be her victim anymore. When her lawyer saw our evidence, the Yelp review wording, the printouts, the false medical complaint, he pushed her to settle. She didn't want to. She insisted she'd win in court. But during the discovery process, Paul came forward and signed an affidavit stating that Michelle had printed and written all of it. He handed over the original folder. Game over. She settled. I can't legally say the amount, but I'll say this: it covered all my lost business, my legal fees, and enough left over for me to upgrade my entire home office and pay off my car. And as part of the agreement, she had to post a retraction on Yelp and Facebook, publicly admitting that the review was false and had been posted out of personal resentment and stress. Her lawyer wrote it, but she had to sign it. That post stayed up for 30 days. People noticed. But the final twist? That came from Paul. He moved out 3 months after the lawsuit ended. He knocked on my door the day before and said, "I'm done. I can't live with someone like that anymore." He apologized for everything. He even said, "If I'd spoken up sooner, maybe none of this would have happened." I told him, "You did the right thing when it counted." Michelle stayed. But she's quiet now. She doesn't look me in the eye. She doesn't walk her dog when I'm outside. She stopped going to HOA meetings. Her reputation in the neighborhood is done. I still work as a doula. My calendar is fuller than ever. And word of mouth? It exploded. That parenting group now refers to me as the one who stood up to the liar next door. I never wanted a fight. I never wanted revenge. But when someone tries to destroy everything you built out of jealousy and spite, and you catch them red-handed, you don't let them walk away clean. You show them exactly what it feels like to be powerless. And you never apologize for defending your name.